and the over did not hit because they decided to have basically 20 points at halftime.
Oof.
I had no interest in that game whatsoever. I was just curious about the over-under hitting, and I turned the game on with like 4 minutes to go in the first half, and I'm like, they have 29 points right now. 29 points. The Mavs went for 120 on their own. I just needed 90. 90 from Boston would have gotten me there. The over-under was 210. Did not happen, and that was like, look, they're going to win the NBA championship. Nobody has ever come back from 3-0.
This can't be the first.
This can't be the first.
Okay.
This won't be the first.
All right.
That is one of the most, like, show up. You have a chance to win a championship, and they just completely no-showed on Friday.
I think that was my takeaway. You don't win game 4. You end up getting blown out. Okay, it happens all the time. 3-0 team kind of counts the chickens, and then they just say, we'll win the next one.
Yeah.
That happens. And the way that all of those key players played indicates to me, we'll win this in Boston.
Yes.
Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Holiday, every single one of them sucked.
They were all terrible.
But to not even, like, show up, this is, you have one more game to win, and
Yes.
you get to hoist the trophy.
They scored 14 points in the second quarter.
You get to capitalize and throw this in every sports fan and media person's face that has talked about trading, breaking up. They can't do it. There's not a superstar. This guy's not that good. This guy's overrated. That was your opportunity. And they just collectively went out there and said,
we're good.
We don't really care.
Who cares?
And look, they probably win game 5 tonight. It's a weird thing to preview because I don't know if we should preview it. We'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas loses by 20.
Yeah.
But don't play with your food. If you lose and it gets blown out at the end, that's not the same
different.
as completely not trying. They did not try. It's one of the worst losses in their franchise's history.
Yes.
It's the most they've lost by this year by a wide margin. It's the fewest points they've scored this year by a wide margin. They did not care one iota. And if I'm Adam Silver, I am in my office breaking stuff. I'm Bill Murray and Scrooge. I'm shooting at a ghost, just breaking glass because, man, if you just cared a little bit, we'd get people. If you told me and you showed me a graph where America that is watching sports right now and it drops and then the College World Series is spiking up, I would have been in that spike. That would have been me. Because even basketball me is like,
this is dumb. I'm not watching this.
I was more interested in Joel Embiid hinting at tampering with Paul George on a broadcast. And I'll say this. I've seen this on Twitter a couple times, and I agree 100% with it. This is not being treated like a championship. Their schedule's a joke, and they have no buzz. None whatsoever. Even if the series was close, and it should be, statistically speaking, even if the series was close, I just don't feel the juice. And I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it. I don't know if it's the crappy pre-post-game halftime show that they have here.
It's part of it.
I don't know if it's the production value of it, if it's just the way we do hot take stuff. It just doesn't feel big. It doesn't feel important. And I don't know how to pinpoint that exactly, but I do feel it. And I'm a basketball guy.
Yeah, I don't think it's even one issue. I think it's a collection of issues because I have the same feeling that you do. And your point on Adam Silver is so good. Like, we finally get Dallas to win a game. It's not a sweep, so yay, that's great. But they're up by, 25 at halftime, whatever it was. The Boston Celtics scored 35 points in the first half of that game.
You knew they weren't winning that game.
35. It's over. Basically, halfway through the second quarter, that game is over. And everybody is grabbing the remote control and going, click, and they're changing the channel because it's a 30-point game. So
yes.
You finally get a compelling, like, hey, Dallas won a game, but it's a 40-point blowout, and it's a bad look, and nobody's watching the second half of it. But I think it's a collection of things. I think it's one, Boston, to a certain extent, not being a superstar-driven team, I think hurts their narrative a little bit, as dumb as that is, because they play great team basketball, but it's a sport that is driven by stars and rings and where the all-time pantheon, like those are the things that we love to debate about the NBA. The Celtics don't have. We have an open debate about who the best player on their team is. And I think it's a valid debate that goes both ways. Tatum's an unbelievable player. Jaylen Brown's been better in some big moments. Like, that's an open conversation. When was the last time you had that? It hasn't really happened in a while. So I think that hurts. ESPN, their pre-post stuff is and halftime stuff is unwatchable.
Dude, the Stephen A. walk-ups, like,
it's embarrassing. It makes
really
a mockery
is.
of the entire NBA Finals.
Why do we care?
It's
He's
not
not
cool,
an athlete.
It's not funny. Like,
No.
he's about to get $20 million a year, by the way, in his next contract,
Yes.
according to Front Office Sports.
It's insane.
We have gotten to a point where that dude has reached a different level. I think he is stuck being that Stephen A. all day, every day.
And
I
they
think
do
that's
those
his
videos
life.
because they know it's going to get clicks and attention, and people are going to sound off on it. And that's what they want. They want the attention. They want to generate the controversy. But I think it's all of those things in a series that, to this point, you had Dallas getting blown out in Game 1. Game 2 was pretty good back and forth. Game 3 was okay. Boston came back and won. Or Dallas, came back and almost won, and Boston held on. And then
that was the game. That was the series right there. They should have won that game. Boston played atrocious, and they couldn't capitalize on that moment.
I need a win. If you want me to care, I need a win tonight.
I'm with you there.
I have like a 1.5 out of 10 on my care meter for tonight's game. It will be on my television. Dallas wins. You've roped me back into the series. If I'm not expecting it, but I need one game in a 3-1 series is not going to do it for me.
Even after that Game 4 performance, too, like just the questions about Boston being a possible dynasty. I mean, outside of the point that it's very difficult in this NBA current standing to actually get a dynasty going for any franchise, but man, after they played in Game 4, I'm sorry, a team that just doesn't show up, like this sounds totally like just out of left field, but like I don't remember the Bulls not ever showing up.
They definitely had games
in NBA
but
Finals games like that.
Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah, they go look at the Chicago. I mean, they didn't have a ton of them, and maybe they didn't lose by 38.
Yeah,
they had some real stinkers once in a while in there. It wasn't every night. It wasn't always up 3-0.
But scoring like 10 points in a 3-0 game where you can close it out, I get it. You're probably not going to give max effort, but to give zero effort, just no team can be a dynasty offering that up. And I would champion that. No, teams like the Golden State Warriors, their dynasty, teams like the Chicago Bulls did not have that bad of a game.
I'm glad you brought that up, Schultz, because I forgot about that. I was not watching the pregame stuff for Game 4, so they were legitimately having a debate on ESPN about will the Celtics be a dynasty.
They by the way,
no,
the Bulls,
they haven't even won a title yet. Let them win one, and then what are we doing?
Bulls were up 3-0 on my beloved Supersonics in '96. They lost by 21 in Game 4. They completely they played like crap.
What was the score at halftime? Not as wide as it was.
Well, no, I'm not saying it was the same. I'm just saying, like, you have some stinkers. Again, you can lose by double digits. To just completely not want to play that game, that's what that was. And I'm glad you brought the dynasty thing. We do that way too often.
Are they a dynasty?
I made the point of I don't think they have a superstar per se, but they're so well run and the East is such garbage that I wouldn't put it past them to be in the finals next year is all I would say to the dynasty.
They're going to be in the mix for a handful of years to come.
What I found myself, I heard this, I may have heard on Wendy's pod, but I heard a conversation about where they rank all time as a team in the final stuff because I think they had, up until Game 4, they had not lost a road game in the playoffs. They'd only had 2 losses all playoffs anyway. And so, like, their record is going to be in the all-time. Remember the Lakers with Iverson? They were 15-0, and then he beat them, and they went fifth. They were 15-1. I've seen this team. I also saw the East. That's not even a top 10 team to me.
No.
And, like, that's what that record was putting them in. And then that game happens. It's like, you got to take them out of this. What are we? They'll probably win the championship, and they deserve it. They were well built. But all-time team. We're going to go all-time.
Now you're losing me.
You can nerd out on your numbers. Their plus minus, their net rating, their per 30. You can give me all the numbers till the cows come home. I've watched basketball my whole life. That is not an all-time team. It's a really good team.
Damn good team, a deserving champion.
But also, the conference has never been worse than it was this year with the injuries and how everything broke out for them.
It is funny how you get those narratives that, like, I want to give them their flowers, and then I'm hit in the face with this stuff of, like, a conversation of will it be a dynasty and are they one of the best NBA teams ever compiled? And you just lose me, and it makes me more anti-Boston because I don't feel like we're doing this we didn't do this with Denver last year, and I think Denver's team last year was better than Boston's team team this year, and nobody was having a conversation of, is that one of the greatest NBA teams of all time? Or are they going to be a dynasty?
I think Denver beats this Boston
yes,
team this
they would
year,
have won
but
the
they didn't get
finals.
there.
I still think they would have, just like Georgia would have won the college football championship if they
probably.
made the playoff, more than likely. But they didn't,
They
so
didn't,
the Nuggets didn't, and so here we are. This is only a Boston thing. It's why I hate that damn city. I can't stand them.
Well, to your point, Schultz, on the Bulls game 4 against the Sonics, they scored 11 in the second quarter. They got outscored 28-11 in that second quarter. That was the difference because they tied them in the second half with points.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, with the NBA, and I've always said this, the undoing of the NBA, I think, for a lot of sports fans is the off-court stuff just seems to matter as much, if not more, than a lot of the on-court stuff. ESPN's top 3 basketball stories, they're not 3 finals-related things. It's, is the series going to keep going? And then, did you see Joel Embiid? And Klay Thompson's unfollowed his team on Instagram.
Oh, God.
That's the
stuff.
NBA
Lakers
in a nutshell.
coaching surge still ongoing.
That's what it is in a nutshell, and it's just not. I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words. I don't know how much of this is ESPN's fault. I don't want to blame ESPN, but like the schedule of the NBA Finals sucks, and then like it just doesn't feel championship. We had a boxing match this weekend, and Tank Davis knocked out Frank Martin in like brutal fashion. You're like, that's what you pay to watch boxing for.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm getting. Not that I'm paying my cable bill. I don't feel like I'm getting my money's worth in this championship. It doesn't feel championship-esque.
I'm with you, especially coming off a U.S. Open where you had 2 heavy hitters
That
throwing
was a great
haymakers
sports
at
moment.
each other all the way to
Yes.
the final shot of the
Yes.
tournament. You're like, that is what you
That's
want it to
good.
look like. I tend to agree with you, and I don't know how long it's going to take for them to realize the scheduling snafus that they're making is hurting the product, and it's hurting the interest in the NBA Finals.
Yes.
The longer it drags on, the more momentum that you lose. And if they would have followed up, like one listener is texting this in, and it's spot on. That game was on Friday. A lot of people turn it off. It's a blowout. Whatever.
It's Sunday.
You followed up. U.S. Open finished at what, 4 o'clock yesterday?
3:30, yeah.
3:30,
Yep.
4 o'clock. You parlay that directly into Game
Perfect.
5 of the
5
NBA
o'clock.
Finals
Yep.
on Father's Day. Let's go. Back
Yep.
in Boston. Crowds all there. Everybody. Like, we're all sitting on our couch watching TV for the most part on Father's Day anyways.
Yes.
And now we wait one more day, and there's one more day where it lingers. And it just, I don't know how long it's going to take them to learn, but they need to address the schedule.
It almost feels like, and I saw this too on Twitter, of like the schedule's it's so gapped that like every game doesn't feel like a momentum from a previous. It's just a random game in a way. And the outcome has not been favorable to Dallas, obviously, being down 3-1. But like,
Yeah.
Game 2 didn't feel like anything from Game 1, and Game 3 was completely different of Game 2, and Game 4 was just this blood. I don't know, man. That basketball has had a real struggle here. I heard Russillo say this on the Simmons pod of they've lost 7 million people from the LeBron 2018 finals to where they've been at the last couple years.
That's a big chunk.
It's a huge chunk. And maybe that's just matchup driven, star driven. I don't know how to quantify it really. I don't know enough about that, but it's interesting to think about because everybody feels like we're in the same boat of this final stinks. There's no buzz to it.
Yeah.
Last year's we knew it was going to stink because the Denver Nuggets were clearly going to trounce Miami. It's just so on and so forth. Is you just hoping Dallas wins tonight? Okay, maybe it can breathe some life into this.
Hopefully.
But it's tough to see that happening.
I think it's a reminder of it's in my sport is the same exact way. You are driven by stars and you're driven by names. And the biggest star in this finals is Luka Doncic, who is
He's whining.
He's whining and complaining. He's not enjoyable to watch when he does that, and his team's down 3-1. And I would argue you have a very talented team with very good players, but you don't have a bona fide superstar necessarily on the other side. You get LeBron versus Steph, that writes itself. LeBron versus KD, it writes itself. But you get this, it's a little bit different, and the ratings are suffering because of it. We'll see. I'm hopeful that Dallas wins tonight. I would love. We're reaching that dry period where we're debating if Cal Raleigh is a top 5 catcher in Major League Baseball.
it's
But
getting
also,
close.
we
For
like
the love
this.
of God.
We like this, though.
We
Let's
do.
be
We
honest.
do love
this
that
is what
time of
we
year.
do all day, every day with our boys.
Name
on
a
the group
random
chat.
baseball player, go. You know, we get that kind
You
of
can
radio.
fire these things
right?
off in group chats, and it goes all day. Oh, come on.
I would love for an interesting game. Somebody texted in the Celtics lost on purpose. They want to win at home, and I
Good
don't.
luck with that. I mean, that's probably true, but
And they probably will win tonight. But
Yeah.
good. I hate
you lose
teams-
tonight.
Yes.
And now 6 is a pucker factor.
That's
Now
a
you're-
stupid way to do it.
Now you're Rory standing over a 3-foot putt on 18, trying to win the NBA championship. So we'll see if we get a great game tonight.